I always thought turning 18 was supposed to feel special, a rite of passage, a moment of stepping into adulthood, a day where the world recognized you as something more than a kid. For me, it felt like walking into a party where I wasn't invited. It was our 18th birthday, mine, and my sister Jasmine's. Our mom went all out. Banners, balloons, a giant cake. The whole family was there, plus half the neighborhood. But the moment I saw the massive happy 18th, Jasmine and Erica's sign hanging in the restaurant, I knew exactly who the real star of the night was. Jasmine was always the golden girl, the one with the dazzling smile, the effortless charm, the kind of person who could trip over her own feet and still land gracefully. Meanwhile, I was just her twin, the quieter one, the one described as practical and hardworking, while Jasmine was brilliant and gifted. I stood in the corner, sipping a watered-down soda, watching as guests showered Jasmine with attention, compliments, praise. I tried not to let it sting, but when my mother beamed at Jasmine like she hung the moon, while barely sparing me a glance, it was hard not to feel the familiar ache. Then came the presents. In the restaurant parking lot, everyone gathered as my mom handed Jasmine a car key with a proud smile. The crowd erupted in cheers as the valet pulled up in a sleek, midnight blue BMW, gleaming under the streetlights. Jasmine squealed, hugging our mom so tightly it looked like a scene from a heartfelt commercial. And then, after what felt like a painfully long pause, my mom turned to me. "We didn't forget you, Erica," she said, smiling a little too tightly. From behind her back, she pulled out a package wrapped in brown paper. It was soft, lumpy, and already felt like an afterthought. I peeled back the wrapping to reveal a black leather jacket. It was cracked at the elbows, smelled faintly of old perfume, and had that unmistakable thrift store musk. "You mentioned wanting one," she said, almost defensively. "It's vintage, very trendy." The crowd shifted awkwardly. Even Jasmine hesitated for a second before laughing. "Damn, Erica," she smirked, slinging an arm around my shoulder. "You're gonna be irresistible now. Maybe even score a date for once." A few people chuckled, not at the joke at me. I forced a smile, gripping the jacket tightly as heat rose to my cheeks. I could feel it, the weight of years of being second place pressing down on me. Jasmine got a brand new car. I got someone's old jacket. Like always, she got a future handed to her. And me? I was expected to figure it out on my own. As the laughter and chatter returned, I clenched my fists, the rough leather biting into my palms. That night, as I sat in my tiny bedroom, staring at the jacket draped over my chair, something inside me shifted. I was tired of being an afterthought. Maybe it was time to change that. The jacket sat in the corner of my room, a silent reminder of everything I tried to ignore. At first, I thought I could just forget about it, pretend it didn't matter, pretend my birthday wasn't a total disaster. But every time I glanced at it, that musty scent of old perfume and worn leather filled my room like a ghost. It clung to the air, to my thoughts, to the very idea that this was what I was worth in my family's eyes. I glared at it. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed the thing and flung it across the room. It landed in a crumpled heap, looking just as pathetic as I felt. I spent the rest of the morning avoiding my family. Jasmine, of course, was already out, parading her brand new BMW around town. Mom and Dad were back at the restaurant, cleaning up the mess from last night's party, while probably gushing about how proud they were of her. And me? I was scrolling through TikTok in bed, eating leftover pizza straight from the box, trying to pretend I didn't care. But boredom has a funny way of making you face things you don't want to. By noon, I picked up the jacket again, holding it at arm's length like it might infect me with disappointment. The leather felt rough, cracked with age. I ran my fingers along the inside lining, more out of frustration than curiosity, until something shifted under my touch. I frowned. Something was sewn into the lining. I tugged at a frayed edge near the right pocket, and with a sharp rip, the stitches gave way. My heart skipped a beat as my fingers brushed against something thin and crumpled beneath the fabric. I reached inside and pulled out lottery tickets. 4 of them. For a second, my brain refused to process it. Who stuffs lottery tickets inside a jacket lining? Were they even real? Were they worth anything? I smoothed one out. 4 years old, faded, slightly worn, edges soft from being handled too much. I checked another, same thing. Just a bunch of old, worthless scraps of paper. that someone hadn't had the heart to throw away. But then I saw the fourth ticket. Something about it made me hesitate. The paper looked the same, faded, creased, forgotten, but a nagging feeling settled in my stomach. I almost didn't check it, almost tossed the whole pile onto my desk and moved on with my life. But before I could, the door slammed open. "Erica, you gotta see this." I nearly jumped out of my skin as Jasmine burst into my room, practically vibrating with excitement. She didn't even notice the crumpled tickets in my hand as she grabbed my wrist and dragged me toward the door. "Come on, you haven't even seen what this baby can do." I barely had time to drop the tickets onto my desk before being pulled outside, where Jasmine's brand new BMW gleamed in the driveway like a damn trophy. "Check this out," she grinned, slipping into the driver's seat and revving the engine like she was in a Fast and Furious movie. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to look unimpressed while every neighbor within earshot turned to stare. Jasmine, of course, soaked it all in, flipping her hair and laughing like she was the main character in some coming-of-age film. And yet, my mind wasn't on the car. It was on the crumpled tickets sitting on my desk. Something about that last one nagged at me, like a forgotten memory trying to claw its way to the surface. But I wouldn't think about it again until later that night, when one single moment would change everything. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the fourth lottery ticket. It wasn't special, just an old, crumpled piece of paper with faded ink and curled edges. It looked exactly like the others, forgotten, useless, a scrap of someone else's past. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this one was different. I picked it up, running my fingers over the worn-out numbers, my thoughts spinning. It was 4 years old, long expired, probably worth nothing. People joke about finding a winning ticket in random places, but no one actually wins like that. Not people like me, I sighed, setting the ticket aside. Then, just as I reached for my phone, my elbow knocked over my soda. I snapped forward, cursing under my breath as the sticky liquid spilled across my desk, pooling under my notebook, my phone, and the lottery tickets. Shit! Shit! I grabbed a handful of tissues, trying to stop the mess from spreading, but the damage was done. The ink on the old tickets was already smudging, turning the numbers into blurred stains. Frustrated, I scooped up the soggy tickets and tossed them into the trash can next to my bed. A soft thud, like closure, because really, what were the odds? The next day was ordinary in the worst way possible. Jasmine bragged about her new car. Mom gushed about how mature and responsible Jasmine was. Dad grumbled about bills, while sipping on an overpriced Dunkin' coffee. And me? I sat on the couch flipping through channels, trying to ignore the same gnawing frustration I'd felt my whole life. Then, a familiar jingle played from the TV. I didn't think much of it at first. Just another Mega Millions broadcast, announcing some ridiculously high jackpot that I'd never have a chance at. But then I heard the numbers, and my heart stopped. $58 million, the host announced cheerfully, standing in front of a gold backdrop. And the winning numbers are. I sat up. I didn't know why, but something about that number felt familiar. My chest tightened, my mind racing. Why did that number feel like something I'd seen before? One lucky winner, the host continued, grinning at the camera, purchased the ticket at a small convenience store right here in town. My stomach flipped. The jacket, the ticket inside the lining, the old, crumpled numbers I barely even looked at before tossing them in the trash. No way. It wasn't possible. And yet, deep down, I already knew the truth. I jumped to my feet so fast that Dad turned from his coffee, frowning. "What's up with you?" I didn't answer. I was already sprinting upstairs, nearly tripping over my own feet as I flung open my bedroom door. My eyes landed on the trash can next to my bed, but before I could even take a step forward, my entire body froze. It was empty. The trash was gone. I staggered back, my pulse thundering in my ears. No. Trash day. I rushed to the window, my breath catching in my throat. Outside, sitting by the curb, were our garbage bins, lids ajar, like open mouths mocking me. And from down the street, the low mechanical growl of a garbage truck rumbled closer. I didn't think. I just ran. I burst through the front door, nearly tripping over my own feet as I sprinted toward the bins. The morning air was thick with heat, the scent of asphalt and stale trash filling my nose as I threw open the nearest lid. The garbage truck was just a few houses away. I barely noticed. I was too busy digging through the trash, shoving aside greasy pizza boxes, empty soda cans, and crumpled coffee cups. Somewhere in this mess was a crumpled, sticky ticket. A ticket that could be worth $58 million. And I had seconds to find it. The beeping of the garbage truck grew louder. I gagged as my hands sank into something slimy and wet. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Then, behind me, laughter. "Yo, Erica," I stiffened. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Jasmine's voice rang through the air, dripping with mockery. "What the hell are you doing?" I could hear her friends snickering beside her, the glow of their phone screens flashing in my peripheral vision. They were recording me. "Oh my God," Jasmine laughed, stepping closer. "Are you dumpster diving? What, you finally hit rock bottom?" I clenched my jaw, fingers digging deeper into the trash. I didn't care. I didn't care about the humiliation. I didn't care about what it looked like. Pride wouldn't pay for college. Pride wouldn't give me a future, but that ticket might. The garbage truck lurched closer, its metal arm reaching for the first bin. My stomach flipped. "Hey, kid." I turned to see one of the garbage workers stepping out of the truck, wiping his hands on his uniform. He looked at me with a mix of amusement and concern. "You need something? We're about to dump that." Jasmine snorted. "Yeah, Erica, you find any treasure yet?" Her friends erupted in laughter. I ignored them. I shoved aside a crumpled fast food bag, and my fingers brushed against something thicker than the rest of the trash. I grabbed it, yanked it free, and there, in my hand, was a sticky, soda-stained Mega Millions ticket. My breath caught. Behind me, Jasmine scoffed. "Seriously?" The garbage worker stepped closer, glancing at the ticket. "That important?" he asked. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling. "Yeah," I whispered. "I think it might be." He gave a knowing grunt, adjusting his cap. "Well, hope it's worth the smell." The truck's engine roared behind me, the metal arm lifting the next bin. But I wasn't thinking about the garbage anymore. I was staring at the crumpled ticket in my hands. I didn't know if it was real, if I was holding a miracle, or just a sticky piece of trash. But I was about to find out. I didn't waste a second. With the sticky, crumpled ticket clutched in my hand, I turned and ran. Jasmine's laughter faded behind me, but I could still feel the heat of her mockery burning into my back. My sneakers slapped against the pavement as I sprinted toward the house, my pulse hammering so hard it felt like my heart was about to burst out of my chest. The moment I reached the front door, I nearly crashed into the side table in the hallway. The lamp wobbled dangerously, but I didn't stop to steady it. I bolted up the stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time, and slammed my bedroom door behind me. Click. I locked it. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone, fingers fumbling as I opened the Mega Millions app. The screen glowed brightly in the dim light of my room, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. My entire body hummed with electricity, my mind screaming, "What if, what if, what if?" I turned the ticket over, squinting through the sticky smudges to find the QR code. The camera blinked red, then green. A notification popped up on my screen. "Winning ticket detected." I froze. For a second, the room felt too small, too quiet, like the entire world had just paused. I swallowed hard, my thumb hovering over the screen. I tapped. The app refreshed. And then, $58 million. I dropped my phone. It hit the carpet with a soft thud, but I barely noticed. My legs buckled, and I collapsed onto the bed, my body suddenly feeling like it was made of static electricity and jelly at the same time. No way. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But the number was still there. $58 million. I snatched my phone back up, my eyes darting across the screen. The date matched. The serial number matched. The sticky, soda-stained ticket in my hand was worth more money than I had ever seen or ever thought I'd see in my entire life. The reality of it hit me like a freight train. I screamed. Not a polite, controlled scream, but a full-throated, from-the-gut scream. The kind that makes neighbors text to ask if you're okay. I barely had time to catch my breath before. Knock, knock, bang, Eureka! Shit. I scrambled to shove the ticket under my pillow, my phone still glowing in my hand. The door handle jiggled. "What the hell is going on in there?" Mom's voice, sharp with concern. "Nothing," my voice cracked. I just dropped something." Too late. The key turned, the door swung open, and Mom stepped inside, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the room. Behind her, Dad and Jasmine appeared, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Jasmine folded her arms. "Dude, you sounded like you just saw a ghost." I forced a laugh. gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My mind scrambled for an excuse. I just won some money on a scratch-off, like $150. Dad snorted, stepping forward. Well, maybe now you can finally pitch in for the internet bill. Mom sighed, her face softening. That's nice, honey. Just keep it down next time. And just like that, their interest faded. The door clicked shut, and I locked it again, my heart still pounding against my ribs. I sat back down on my bed, staring at the pillow where the ticket was hidden. $58 million. And I was the only one who knew. At first, I thought I could just pretend nothing had changed, go back to my normal routine, keep my head down, figure things out in secret. But how do you act normal when you're sitting on a fortune that could buy every house in your neighborhood? I started spending more time on my phone, reading article after article on lottery winners, searching for things like how to claim a jackpot anonymously. I learned two things real fast. A lot of lottery winners go broke. A lot of lottery winners get screwed over by their own families. The second one hit too close to home. I needed a plan. Step 1. Get a lawyer. I found one through a late-night Google search, a law firm that specialized in lottery claims and privacy protection. The next morning, I borrowed Dad's old Chevy Malibu, the one he never used since Jasmine got her BMW, and drove into the city. The car rattled the whole way there, the air conditioner barely working, the radio stuck on static. It smelled like stale coffee and regret. By the time I reached the law office, my hands were sweaty, my stomach knotted with nerves. A receptionist greeted me with a polished smile. How can I help you? I swallowed. I need legal advice. About a lottery ticket. She didn't even blink. Would you like to schedule a consultation with Dana Smith? Yeah, as soon as possible. Step 2, keep my mouth shut. That part? Not so easy, because the thing about Jasmine, she has a sixth sense for secrets. It started with little things. You've been on your phone a lot, she said one afternoon, leaning against the fridge, watching me with narrowed eyes. I shrugged, just scrolling TikTok. She didn't buy it. A few days later, I was on the phone with Dana Smith, finalizing details about the trust account she was setting up for me. I thought my bedroom door was shut. It wasn't. I didn't realize it until I heard the softest creak behind me. I turned. Jasmine stood in the doorway, phone in hand, her eyes wide with shock. My blood turned to ice. She bolted. Jasmine! I lunged after her, but she was already thundering down the stairs. By the time I reached the living room, she was breathlessly blurting it all out to Mom and Dad. Erica won the lottery, she gasped. I heard her talking to a lawyer. She has money, like a lot. Silence. Then Dad paused the TV, remote halfway to his mouth. What's this now? Mom's jaw dropped. And just like that, my secret was out. I had no idea what was coming next. But I knew one thing for sure, they weren't going to make this easy. The living room was dead silent. Mom stared at me like I'd just confessed to murder. Dad's mouth opened and closed, like he was trying to speak but couldn't find the words. Jasmine? She just sat there, arms crossed, smug as hell, like she'd just won some game I didn't even know I was playing. I felt lightheaded, my mind racing. Erica, Mom finally said, voice shaking. Is this true? I could have lied, could have said Jasmine was messing with them, that she must have misheard. But what was the point? She'd already planted the seed. Even if I denied it, they'd never let it go now. So I took a breath. Yeah, I said, my voice flat. It's true. Dad let out a choked noise and clutched his chest, looking like he'd just been personally betrayed by the universe. $1 million? He wheezed. I blinked. What? You won $1 million and didn't think to tell your own family? I exhaled sharply. I didn't say $1 million. Jasmine's head snapped toward me, her eyes glinting. Wait, then how much did you win? Shit. I kept my face neutral. It's not important. Dad sat down heavily, still gripping his chest like he was going to have a heart attack. Mom was already in panic mode, her hands clasped together like she was about to start praying. Jasmine, though, she was watching me closely. You won more than $1 million, didn't you? She said, voice slow, like she was putting the pieces together. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her eyes widened, lips parting slightly. Oh my God. She turned to Mom and Dad, grinning. She's loaded. Here we go. Mom's hands flew to her chest, and just like that, the whole conversation turned on its head. At first, it was just hints. Mom, sighing dramatically, imagine what we could do as a family if we had just a little extra help. Dad, offhandedly, we've sacrificed so much for you. It'd be nice to finally take that Grand Canyon trip. Jasmine, not even subtle. My car's nice, but I was thinking about an upgrade. I ignored them. Then the guilt tripping started. Mom sat across from me at breakfast, stirring her coffee like she was dissolving her patience into it. Erica, sweetie, she said, too sweetly. You know, families take care of each other. We raised you, we put food on the table, and put Jasmine through tennis lessons while I worked weekends at a grocery store. I cut in. Mom's smile tightened. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. We're just saying a little gratitude would go a long way. Jasmine scoffed. Yeah, Erica, you didn't get here by yourself. I felt my stomach twist. For years, they'd treated me like an afterthought, and now, the moment I had something they wanted, they were acting like we were the Brady Bunch. I pushed my plate away. I'm done with this conversation. I got up. Dad's voice snapped like a whip. Sit back down. I froze. Slowly, I turned. Excuse me? He stood up, glaring. You're acting like a selfish brat. We took care of you, and now it's time for you to do something for this family. My hands curled into fists. Let me get this straight, I said, voice dangerously calm. You spent every penny of the college fund on Jasmine, told me I wasn't university material, and now that I finally have a chance at something, you think I owe it to you? Jasmine rolled her eyes. Oh my God, are you still bitter about that? I turned to her, my anger boiling over. You got a brand new car for your birthday, and I got a thrift store jacket with a lottery ticket sewn inside it, which, by the way, is the only reason I even have this money in the first place. Mom gasped, clutching her pearls like I'd just cussed her out in church. Dad, his face turned red. You ungrateful little. I didn't let him finish. I turned on my heel and walked away. I was done. That night, I packed a bag. I logged into my trust account and made arrangements. I found a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, just mine. I left a note on the kitchen counter before I walked out the door. I'm done. Don't contact me. By the time the sun was rising, I was gone. The texts started pouring in within hours. Mom, Erica, please. We need to talk. Dad, you're making a huge mistake. Family comes first. Jasmine, enjoy your trash money, loser. You'll be begging us for help in a year. I turned off notifications and focused on my new life. The apartment was tiny, but it was mine. I ate cold pizza on the floor, scrolled through my phone, and for the first time in my life, felt free. Then my phone buzzed again. Not from my family, from an old high school friend. Dude, you're famous. I clicked the link. A viral TikTok popped up. Jasmine's voice narrated the clip. This is my sister Erica, she said, zooming in on a video of me, digging through the trash. She thought she was going to get rich off literal garbage. Spoiler alert, she didn't. The caption read, #dumpsterdivermillionaire. I felt my stomach drop. Then I scrolled, and the comments? They weren't laughing at me. Wait, didn't someone just win $58 million with an old ticket? Respect. She didn't give up. That's the kind of determination I need. From trash to treasure, this girl is a legend. News articles started popping up. Reporters reached out. Influencers tagged me. And for the first time in my life, people weren't mocking me. They were rooting for me. A week later, I stood in a dealership parking lot, signing papers for my new car. Not a flashy sports car like Jasmine's, just a reliable SUV, comfortable, safe, a car that could take me anywhere I wanted to go. The salesman handed me the keys. Congrats, Miss Carter. I slid into the driver's seat, inhaling the scent of new leather. On the passenger seat sat my old jacket, the torn lining still visible, a reminder. Sometimes, the best things come from the most unexpected places. As I started the engine and pulled onto the road, I didn't look back. I was done being a shadow. I was finally stepping into the light. Story 2. The earliest memory I have of my mother is her lavender perfume. I was 4 when she died, but even now, the scent lingers in my mind, like a ghost from a past life. My name is Sophie, and this is the story of how I lost 2 families and found myself. After my mom passed, I spent most of my time at my grandparents' house. They tried their best to shield me from the loss, keeping me distracted with cookies and bedtime stories. My dad, Eric, was always around, but even at that young age, I could tell he was slipping away. I'd overhear whispers from grown-ups about him needing to move on, though I was too young to understand what that meant. Then, one day, he walked through the door with a woman named Rachel. "Sophie, this is Rachel," he said, smiling a little too hard. "She's going to be your new mom." My 5-year-old brain didn't fully process what that meant, but I did notice Rachel's rounded stomach. "And you're going to have a baby sister soon." I nodded because it seemed like the right thing to do. That night, I curled up in bed with the only picture I had of my mom, tracing her face with my fingers. I tried to remember her laugh, but it was already slipping away. Rachel wasn't cruel. In fact, she was polite in that distant, forced way people are when they're tolerating something. She made sure I had food, helped with homework, and drove me to school. But I could always tell I wasn't really hers. The shift became more obvious after my sister Lily was born. It was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, everything in the house revolved around the baby. "Be quiet, Sophie, Lily's sleeping. Can you help fold these baby clothes while I feed Lily?" "Not so loud, sweetie. You'll upset your sister." I became a background character in my own home. I tried to be good. I helped out when asked, kept my room clean, did my best to be the perfect older sister. But it didn't matter. Lily got brand new clothes from fancy boutiques, while I got hand-me-downs. She had expensive toys while I clung to a stuffed rabbit missing an ear. She got a brand new tablet before she could even talk, while I was told we couldn't afford a new pair of sneakers for me. I tried not to let it bother me. I told myself they loved us both equally. I believed that lie for years. Then Lily started talking, and that's when I realized just how much power a younger sibling can have. I was 10 when it started. "Lily, do you want to play dolls with me?" I asked one afternoon, hopeful. She wrinkled her nose. "No, I want your dollhouse." I frowned. "But Grandma gave it to me for Christmas." Lily didn't argue. She simply marched straight to Rachel and my dad, putting on a face that I knew meant trouble. "Daddy, Sophie won't share," she wailed, big crocodile tears running down her cheeks. I tried to protest, but it didn't matter. "Sophie," Dad snapped, "stop being selfish and let your sister play with your things." And that was just the beginning. She figured out pretty quickly that all she had to do was cry or pout, and she'd get whatever she wanted. She'd spill juice on herself and say, "I did it." She'd break her own toys and tell Dad I was jealous. She'd take things from my room, and if I tried to get them back, she'd scream like I was hurting her. Every single time, Dad and Rachel believed her. "Sophie, stop trying to get attention. Why do you always have to cause problems? Go to your room." It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter that my grandparents, my only allies, saw what was happening and tried to intervene. "Sophie needs new clothes," Grandma would point out, and suddenly Dad would take me shopping. "Don't you think Sophie would like some new books?" Grandpa would suggest, and magically, they'd appear. But it was always reactive. I was never a priority. And deep down, I started to realize that I never would be. By the time I reached my senior year of high school, I'd stopped trying to win their approval. I did well in school, not because anyone cared, but because I cared. When college applications rolled around, I worked hard. I had my sights set on a solid university with a good graphic design program. And most importantly, I had my college fund money my real mom had set aside for me before she passed. I didn't think much about it, not until one night when I walked past the kitchen and overheard Rachel talking in hushed tones. "It just doesn't make sense to waste all that tuition money on Sophie," she said. My breath caught. "We could use it for Lily," she continued. "Get her into a top private high school. Set her up for real success. It's the smarter investment." My hands clenched into fists. Dad hesitated. "I promised Sarah I'd make sure Sophie got an education." "Sarah's been dead for 14 years. Rachel hissed. "You can't let a promise to a dead woman dictate our real daughter's future." My stomach turned. "Our real daughter," Dad sighed. "If I did that, my parents would disown me. And that was it. The only reason he was keeping his promise was because he didn't want to lose his inheritance. Not because he cared about me, not because of love, just money." I walked away before I could hear more, because I already knew what would come next. Graduation came and went. I was accepted into my dream school's graphic design program. I needed a way to get there. So one night, I cautiously approached my dad. "Hey, can I use the old Honda to get to class? I'd help pay for gas." He cut me off with a sigh. "We can't afford another car right now, Sophie. You'll have to take the bus." I swallowed my disappointment and nodded. But 2 days later, I overheard them talking in the living room. I think the red Mercedes would be perfect for Lily's 16th birthday, Rachel gushed. Dad chuckled. It is a safe car for a new driver. I stared at my bus pass in my hands. Lily, who was only 14, was already getting a luxury car 2 years from now, while I was expected to ride the bus across town. That was the moment something inside me broke. And I knew it didn't matter how good I was. It didn't matter how hard I worked. I would never be enough for them. I was just an afterthought. And soon, they wouldn't just expect me to accept it. They'd expect me to fund it. After overhearing Rachel and Dad talk about using my college fund for Lily, I knew I had to be careful. I started paying closer attention, and what I realized made me sick. For years, I'd convinced myself that maybe they just weren't thinking about how unfair they were being. That if I worked hard enough, if I kept my head down, if I didn't complain, they'd finally see me as just as worthy as Lily. But they knew. They knew, and they just didn't care. And soon, they were going to prove it. 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, Dad called for a family meeting. I walked into the living room and immediately felt the tension. Rachel sat primly on the couch, her hands folded like she was about to deliver a business proposal. Lily sat beside her, fake innocence plastered across her face. Dad sighed and gestured for me to sit. I did. Sophie, he started, voice tight. We need to talk about your college fund. My heart pounded. Rachel jumped in. Lily just got accepted into Ridgewood Academy. I blinked. The private high school? Yes, Rachel gushed. It's an amazing opportunity, but it's expensive, and she exhaled dramatically. We just don't have the money for tuition. The room felt suffocating. Dad leaned forward. Since you've been offered a full scholarship to college, we were thinking maybe you could use some of your fund to help Lily. I stared at them. Was this a joke? Some of it? I repeated. Rachel nodded. Not all. Just enough to cover Lily's tuition. You'll still have some left over for books and living expenses. You mean my money? I said, my voice eerily calm. Rachel smiled, like I was being silly. Honey, this is about family. We help each other. I let out a breathy laugh, shaking my head. Help each other? I repeated. When has Lily ever helped me? When have any of you? Dad's face darkened. Sophie, don't be selfish, I snapped. Oh, I'm selfish? I let out a cold laugh. That's funny, because I don't remember anyone offering to help me when I needed new shoes, or when I wanted to apply to my dream schools, or when I asked for a ride to class. I glared at Rachel. You expect me to give up my future because you two refused to tell your spoiled child no for once? Lily gasped, clutching her chest like I'd physically hurt her. Rachel's face twisted in anger. How dare you speak about your sister like that? I stood up. She's not my sister. She's your golden child, and I'm done pretending otherwise. Dad shot to his feet, his face red. Sophie, no, I cut him off. The answer is no. I'm not giving Lily a single cent of what Mom left me. Rachel stood up too, her eyes blazing. Then you can't stay here. My stomach dropped. What? Dad folded his arms, his jaw clenched. You'll be 18 in 2 weeks. That means we don't have to support you anymore. If you're not willing to help this family, then you need to leave. I stared at him, my heart pounding. You're kicking me out? Rachel crossed her arms. Call it what you want. Lily sniffled beside her, looking up at me with wide, fake hurt eyes. You're really choosing money over family? She whispered. And that was the moment I realized I didn't have a family anymore. I didn't cry, not in front of them. Instead, I turned and walked upstairs, shutting my door behind me. Then, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I knew would help, my grandparents. Grandpa picked up on the second ring. Hey, kiddo. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. Grandpa, the first need help. A pause. Then his voice sharpened. What happened? I told him everything. The college fund, the ultimatum, the fact that they were kicking me out. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking. Grandpa took a deep breath. Sophie, listen to me. You do not have to give them anything. Your mother made sure that money was legally yours the moment you turn 18. I nodded, gripping my phone like a lifeline. I know, but I don't have anywhere to go. Another pause. Then, come over this weekend. We'll figure it out. The truth about the house that Saturday. I sat in my grandparents' living room, nursing a cup of tea. Grandma squeezed my hand. Sweetheart, we've been thinking about this for a while, and with Grandpa's health declining, we've decided we're moving into Pine Grove Retirement Home. I frowned. Wait, what does that mean for the house? Grandpa sighed. It means we won't be needing it anymore. Something in my stomach twisted. Are you selling it? They exchanged a look. Then Grandma said the words that would change my life. We're giving it to you. I nearly dropped my cup. What? Grandpa smiled gently. We've already transferred ownership. The house is yours now. I blinked. But Dad, Grandpa's face darkened, doesn't deserve it, and we refuse to let him take one more thing from you. Tears welled in my eyes. Are you sure? Grandma cupped my cheek. We want you to have a place where you feel safe. You've spent too much of your life being treated like an outsider, Sophie. That ends now. I broke. I threw my arms around them, sobbing into Grandma's sweater. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. I had a home. And soon, Dad and Rachel were going to find out that it wasn't theirs. A week later, Dad and Rachel packed up our rental house, thinking they were moving into their new home. I watched in silence as they walked through the front door, their faces lighting up. Rachel ran her fingers along the antique sideboard. "This place needs a full renovation," she announced. Lily scrunched her nose. "I am not sharing a room with Sophie," Rachel laughed. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll give you the master bedroom." I smirked. "Actually," I said, pulling a folder from my bag, "this house isn't yours to renovate." They turned to look at me. Rachel frowned. "What?" I handed Dad the paperwork. "It's mine. Grandpa and Grandma signed it over to me before they moved." Dad's face went pale. Rachel snatched the papers and skimmed through them, her expression twisting with rage. This can't be legal." "It is," I said, crossing my arms. "And you have 1 week to move out." Lily's jaw dropped. "You're kicking us out?" I shrugged. "Call it what you want." Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. 1 week. Then I turned and walked upstairs to my room, in my house. And for the first time in my life, I won. The moment I walked into my house, leaving my father, Rachel, and Lily stunned in the living room, I knew this was the moment everything changed. For years, they treated me like I didn't belong, like I was disposable, an afterthought. But now, they were the ones with nowhere to go. At first, they didn't believe me. Dad spent the next 2 days making phone calls, first to Grandpa, then to lawyers, then back to Grandpa. When every lawyer told him the same thing, the house was legally mine. Rachel tried another approach, sweet, talking me like I was some little kid she could manipulate. "Sophie, honey," she cooed, sitting beside me at the kitchen table. "This is all just a misunderstanding. Your grandparents made a rash decision. Let's be reasonable." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "Reasonable?" She nodded eagerly. "Of course. We're family, Sophie." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Because 2 weeks ago, you told me to pack my things and get out." Rachel's fake smile faltered. I stood, grabbing the folder with the house deed inside. "You have 5 days left." By day 4, the reality set in. Rachel was stressed, Dad was exhausted, and Lily, she was furious. "You're ruining my life," she screeched, storming into the kitchen where I was making coffee. I didn't even flinch. "Good morning to you too, Lily." She stomped her foot, her eyes wild with entitlement. "Do you even know what you're doing? Where am I supposed to go? I had the master bedroom plan. I was finally getting a walk-in closet." I took a sip of my coffee. "Sounds rough." She gasped, like I had slapped her. "You don't even need this house," she shrieked. "You should just give it to us and live in some tiny apartment like the loser you are." I set my coffee down and gave her the calmest, coldest look I could muster. "This house belonged to Mom's parents," I said slowly. "They wanted it to go to me, not my dad, not you, and definitely not Rachel." "You have 3 days left to pack," Lily screamed. She ran to Rachel, wailing about how unfair this was, how I was evil, how I was stealing the life she deserved. I ignored her, because, for the first time in my life, her tantrums didn't matter. On the final day, Dad finally broke down. "Sophie," he said, standing in the hallway as I cleaned up my living room. "Can we talk?" I shrugged. "Talk?" He hesitated, like he wasn't sure how to say what he wanted. Then, "I know I've made mistakes." I laughed, actually laughed. "Mistakes? Dad, you abandoned me in my own home. You let Rachel and Lily walk all over me. You were going to steal my college fund." He winced. Rachel just thought." "Don't blame Rachel," I interrupted. "You could have said no. You didn't." Silence. "I was grieving," he muttered after a moment. I clenched my jaw. "You don't get to use Mom's death as an excuse for treating me like garbage for 14 years. Dad looked down. "You chose them over me," I said, voice steady. "And now you're facing the consequences." He swallowed hard. "Can we ever fix this?" I tilted my head. "Do you actually want to fix it? Or do you just not like being homeless?" Dad opened his mouth and shut it. And in that moment, I knew. He wasn't sorry. He was desperate. I sighed, stepping back. "You should go. The moving truck's already waiting outside." He looked like he wanted to say more, but in the end, he just nodded. And then he walked out of my house for the last time. After they left, the house was quiet. For the first time, it actually felt like mine. No more tiptoeing around. No more listening to Rachel's voice fill every corner. No more Lily screaming whenever she didn't get her way. Just peace. That first night, I sat in the living room with a blanket, a cup of tea, and a book. And for the first time in years, I breathed. I was free. I hadn't heard from them since. I assumed they were struggling. They had moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town, the kind Rachel always turned her nose up at. Then, one evening, my phone rang. Dad. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Hello? There was a long pause. Then, Sophie. I said nothing. Dad exhaled. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I leaned against the kitchen counter, feeling strangely empty. Okay, I said simply. Another pause. Rachel left, he admitted. Things have been hard. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I'm sure they have. I miss you, he whispered. I miss our family. I closed my eyes. I thought about every birthday he forgot. Every time he let Lily manipulate him. Every time he made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Then I thought about the quiet peace of my home, and I knew my answer. I don't think we were ever a family, I said softly. Not really. Dad sucked in a breath. Sophie, please. I'm not ready, I interrupted. I don't know if I'll ever be. Silence. Then finally, he let out a shaky breath. Okay, and I hung up. Where I am now, I'm finishing up my graphic design degree. The house, I rent it out now, using the income to support myself. Sometimes I drive past the small apartment where Dad lives, and I wonder if he ever really regrets what he did. But the truth, I don't think it matters anymore. I used to spend my whole life chasing his love, trying to be enough, trying to be seen. But I don't need that anymore. I have myself, and that's enough.